Hello everyone. Welcome to week 13 of the Hostos art classes online, and it is truly a delight to be with you. We've worked through so many weeks. We've had so much wonderful work from some of the students, and we haven't heard from some, but hopefully they will resurrect themselves over the next 2 or 3 weeks, and we'll get some marvellous work sent by them for the finals. Now, I have sent an email to you all explaining the finals, and there will be a few things that you need to have done by that time. Number 1, self-portrait. Number 2, the second painting created whatever subject you desire from your imagination. That should be interesting. Number 3, your essay on Frida Kahlo. Remember, I asked you to watch that film a few weeks ago and send in your essay? I've got quite a few. That's great. Then, the postcard. I sent all of you out a postcard by United States Postal Service with a stamp on the card inside so that you don't have to pay anything. Just draw on it and post it back to me. Mail it back to me. Now, so far I've got quite a few still to come. If you're listening to this just now and you have not received one of the postcards, then I would like you to email or text me your full name and address. That should include your zip code and the exact apartment number that you live in your building. Send all that to me and I'll send another one out to you, okay? So those are the things. Now there's quizzes. I've done one last week which was on colour. Colours, primary colours, secondary colours, and the colours of the rainbow. Very simple quizzes. I'm still working on this painting. As you can see, a fair bit has been done since the last time. And I am going to show you some bits here. Basically, it's a railway tunnel. Trains go overhead, but I've covered everything that is from the railroad tracks with a kind of masking tape, and I've painted over it. I've masked off those areas. Let me show you what I mean. This is going to be a signal thing here, and I've never done this live on camera, so let's see. So if I pull this off, this is preserved, ready for me to paint later. Here we are, yeah. See, I wanted to paint the trees all very spontaneously around it without having to work around the box. So I've managed to save this thing, which will be built up in more detail later on. There it is, okay? Now that is just masking tape for artists. You can use that to create a straight line, or to, as I've done, cover something up. Say if you were painting a sky all behind there and you wanted to keep this from just disappearing completely, you can cover it up with masking tape and then take it off later when the paint has dried, and Bob's your uncle. Voila! You have what was there. So I'll work on that later. So that's what I'm working on. As you can see, it's a lot of work. I've got this nice long brush, so I sit like this for a lot of time. You know, I'm just doing the trees at the beginning. I'll work with nature first. When you're doing a painting, say if you're doing a landscape, remember this. Start with the area that's furthest away. Start with this sky, which is the furthest thing away from you, the viewer. Okay? Start with what is furthest away. Then the trees. They are nearer, but still slightly further away. Then these things, these signals, they're the next things. Then I'll have some more stuff going here, like railroad tracks and things like that. Then I'll have, there's a wooden fence here that I'm not gonna take it off just now because I'm still painting around it, you can see. Now, art requires a lot of skill and patience. It's not just that you're suddenly going to become an artist. You have to develop it over time. At least a good artist has to. And it's a lifelong mission. So if you want to have a lifelong mission, go for art. So here we are, I'm doing this, that and the other. You can see I'm doing different kind of dots of green. I'll paint in one or two true leaves later so that it'll fool the eye. But right now that's all I'm doing, is going in with different tonalities of green, different tonalities of the tones of foliage and building those up. So next that, and then there would be this tunnel, which I haven't even started. And then I would work with this this greenery here. And obviously I'm probably going to do something extra with it. I don't know, I haven't decided. I don't plan all of the paintings out beforehand. I work out things as I'm going along. I like to be spontaneous. I like to have an element of risk and discovery in what I'm doing. I don't want you to think mechanically. I don't want art that's mechanical. I don't want art that's just machine made from the machine mind. I only respond to art that comes from something higher than that. And I think that you should aspire to that if you're going to be a true artist. Look beyond the man-made things to something higher that makes art truly have a wonderful impact. Now behind me on the wall here, talking about that, is an old painting that you might have seen in the background sometimes. Here it is. It's an old one that I liked when I was a child. It's painted by, I think it's from the 15th century. I'm not good at dates, but it's something like 1460 something. And this painting is by the artist called, it's a great name, Hieronymus Bosch. And Hieronymus Bosch was a artist in the Netherlands, and this painting actually ended up in, of all places, Spain. So if you're ever in Madrid, that's where you'll see the painting in the Prada Museum. The reason for that is Spain invaded the Netherlands, and this was one of the spoils of war. King Philip of Spain really wanted this painting, and he got it. I think they were at war for about 30 years. It was quite rough, you know. So the painting has got 3 panels. This one is supposed to be depicting the Garden of Eden, or a kind of heaven. This middle one is supposed to be Earth. The painting is called The Garden of Earthly Delights. So obviously this was the main component to be looked at. It's got lots of different weird things going on. I'll try and show you that. This is a circle dance here. There's a bunch of women in here bathing. and there are men going around in circles. They're all men on different animals, kind of showing off to the woman. I think what Bosch was trying to say was the men are trying to attract these women. It's kind of the mating ritual of life on Earth. People are looking for some sort of partner, and then they go across this river. There's some people in the river there who have got some sort of, here's a couple inside a kind of bubble on top of a strange creature with a man inside it. They're very bizarre. There's a man who's ended up with a giant owl. There's another couple of lovers inside this weird thing with a leg sticking out. There's a kind of bird thing, giant, looking over. People inside this red tent. Tons of people sitting around there or standing in the water. Another 2 or 3 people under this thing. Another one here with the owl, somebody dancing underneath it. God knows what's going on there. But it looks like that these are people who've got together, you know, and it's not, I presume that these are their partners, you know, and some people have ended up in conventional relationships and some people have ended up in unconventional relationships, and some people have ended up in no relationships at all. So that's life, heaven, life. And then after that, depending, I suppose, on the idea of this time, what you had done in this time, you might end up here, which is hell. And there's different hells. There's the hell of fire. That's the one that we're used to, always burning down in hell. But then there's the hell of noise, if you can see that. But there is a pair of ears with a knife going through them, representing noise. And there's also on this device a bagpipe, which would be really noisy. So that's like when you live next door to a noisy neighbour. Some of you might be getting that during the lockdown, and there's this constant noise of music or shouting or yelling, and it is a sort of hell. That is supposed to be the artist himself, that face there, Hieronymus Bosch. Then there's this strange creation, God knows what was going on in his mind there. Then there's also the hell of cold. Now if you had to live this winter in an apartment with no heating, I had to do that not that long ago when I was, before I moved to America, and I had an apartment with no heating, so I had to sit with a sleeping bag, wearing it at night while I was sitting down because there was no heat in the room, and you put old bottles filled with hot water from the tap in the sleeping bag to heat it up, and it was so cold in the apartment that I could see my breath as if I was smoking cigarettes. So if you've ever had to endure that, you know that hell of freezing cold. And then there's some sort of monster here. Can you see that? It is eating people. These are souls of the dead. It's eating them, and then it's sitting on this stool, like a toilet stool. But back in the days, they had no flushing toilets. So it's sitting on a flushing stool and it's pooping out people. So that is a vision of hell. That would be the hell of stink. I won't talk about all these musical instruments. There's lots of literature on this painting by Hieronymus Bosch. The places where you would see paintings back in the old days were not museums that anybody could go to. Only the super rich could afford paintings. So they'd be kings or lords or something like that. And for ordinary people, the only place that they would see paintings would probably be churches. And that's why churches were so popular. I don't know if this painting was in a church. I mean, it'd be quite a strange thing in a church, but you never know. It has 3 bits. 1, 2, 3. So these 3 bits together fold in. That bit folds in, and that bit folds in, if that makes sense. So it would curl round, and a painting with 3 bits like that is called a triptych. 3 pieces, triptych. So that's an old painting that's worth looking at. Yeah, you know, this whole thing here was only about $3 or $4, the poster. And it's one of those that you can keep looking at and seeing more and more and more things. So if those of you who are looking at cartoons and anime and comics and things like that, who are thinking these are great up-to-date things, I can tell you all of it was done and a million times more interesting and weirder hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So I'm going to ask some questions about this. Number one, what is a painting called that folds into 3 pieces? First question, okay? What is a painting that folds into 3 pieces? Number 2, as people couldn't see work in museums which didn't exist, and if you weren't super rich like a king, where could you see paintings normally? If you were poor, what building would you go in to see paintings? What building would be available for you to see paintings? Okay. And number 3, in this painting, can you tell me what the 3 sections represent? What does this represent? I've told you earlier in the talk. What does this represent? I've told you earlier in the talk. And what does this represent? Which I've also told you earlier in the talk. I'm underlining this because there's some of you